I think the more mature you become, the less
Hmm.
willing you're going to be to fake an orgasm, because you know that if you really want a mature relationship with this person, it's got to be based on something a little more real, something a little more honest, and not just based on propping up each other's egos to make them feel good. Welcome to the Get Your Marriage On podcast. I'm your host, Dan Purcell, a Christian marriage and intimacy expert and coach. I'm on a mission to help couples have the best sex and most emotionally intimate marriages possible. Our episodes cover topics you've always wondered about and are packed with practical advice designed to help you take your marriage to the next level. Hello, my friends. In this episode, I'm getting specific with actionable tactics while answering questions about how to grow closer together emotionally, overcoming body image concerns as it relates to sex, why women fake orgasms, enhancing sexual intimacy with sex toys, what the research says about pornography use and its impact on couples, exploring role play in relationships, and most importantly, keeping their erotic energy alive in long-term marriage relationships. I was a guest on a podcast titled From Mrs. to Miss with Andrea. This was a fun, unscripted conversation, and I thought there were elements here that would be useful for you to hear. So with her permission, I'm sharing a portion of that conversation with you today. In a few weeks, I'll be doing another question and answer episode specifically on the topic of sexual fantasies as it relates to Christian couples and long-term marriages. And if you have a question you'd like me to prepare for that episode, please reach out to me on Instagram via direct message or send me an email. I'd love to answer it on an upcoming episode. As always, if you and your spouse are looking to take intimacy in your marriage to the next level, check out my Get Your Marriage On program or contact me or my team about private coaching opportunities. I am here for you to help you and your marriage grow stronger and closer and have a lot more fun together intimately. Lastly, on June 9th, on the calendar, that's 6/9, that's a special day. It's the birthday of the Intimately Us app. It also, because of it's 6/9 on the calendar, it's International Lovemaking Day, and it's a holiday for us. And we want to share that with you and celebrate with you. And I invite you to download the Intimately Us app. We're going to have a challenge starting on June 1st, leading up to the 9th. And we have a lot of special prizes and lots of fun stuff there to join in the festivities with us. So download the Intimately Us app, invite your spouse to download it, sync together, and let's have some fun.
Hello, hello. I am your host, Andrea, with From Mrs. to Ms. Welcome in. I am being joined today by a very special man, Dan Purcell. Welcome to the show today.
Hey, happy to be here. Thank you.
So when you're doing your marital coaching and the intimacy coaching, are there specific communication techniques that can help couples express their needs and wants without feeling fear or judgment? And so what kind of techniques would you use? Just give us like an
Very
example, one or
good.
two.
Yeah. So the biggest part, when I have a specialty in my sex coaching, and it is desire discrepancy. This is where
Okay.
couples where one person wants sex more than the other, which is more
Which is quite
common than you
often.
think.
Yeah,
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 it's pretty common.
yeah.
And so if this is you listening and you have a greater, higher desire than your spouse, or, less desire than your spouse, congratulations, you're perfectly normal.
And is it usually men? I would assume men were the
Yeah.
higher than women. Is that the way that goes?
I'd say if you take a large sampling of our population, then generally men do. And it's because of testosterone. Men generate more testosterone, which increases more sexual interest. However, about 20 to 30% of the couples I work with, the woman has higher sexual desire. And it's not
Okay.
necessarily because of testosterone per se. It's other factors just in the relationship,
Mhm.
dynamics, upbringing, worldviews, comfort with their own bodies. I mean,
Yeah.
there's so much variation out there that a
Interesting.
lot of the higher desire wives kind of feel excluded, and they feel like there might be a
Mhm.
freak or something's wrong with them. And if that's you, you're also perfectly normal. You're not a freak. It's just they say men have higher desire than women because they're taking the whole population into account when they say
Okay.
that. But there's going to
Makes sense.
be a lot of variation and all that. And
So,
then,
okay, so like a technique you would use.
yes, so I work with that. And one of the things that I've learned through my experience and my study and my training is often the focus goes on the lower desire spouse. Like, hey, if this person's up here at this higher level and this other person has lower desire, let's focus all of our attention on the lower desire person to bring his or her desire up closer
Okay.
to the higher desire person. And
Okay.
those kinds of approaches might work in some cases. But what we often forget is marriages are a system. They're relationships. It's a systems approach, meaning what happens to one person affects the other person. There
Yeah.
is a kind of like a Ferris wheel, I think about it. Like
Okay.
when one person moves, the whole system moves together.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so you have to treat the whole system. And oftentimes what I've found in my experience is the person is low desire for a very good, valid reason, meaning
Hmm.
it's actually good judgment that she is lower desire in this
Hmm.
relationship because of the things the higher desire is doing. And they've
Hmm.
co-constructed a marriage where she would be low desire and he would be high desire,
Okay.
often
Okay.
fueled by anxiety, for example. He's anxious that he's not going to get enough sex. So he keeps pursuing. Am I going to get it? Is not this tonight? And she's in reaction to that same anxiety in the system. So she's going to, the anxiety pushes down her desire. So she desires it less and less, or finds excuses not to, or whatever. And this is all going on just over years. The patterns are so like natural that it's like swimming in water, like as a fish, you don't even see it. So
Yeah.
my job as a coach is to really help them like see really clearly and accurately the
Hmm.
process and the systems that are going
Hmm.
on in their marriage that they've become blind to or invisible to. So it's
Interesting.
not
I
so
would
much
assume it
about a
feels like a
technique.
nagging. Yeah, because they're nagging at
Yeah.
you, right? Like that's how I would think of it. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, you get it, go get it. And it's the more somebody nags, the more you want to go the other way, right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Partially because as humans, we hate being controlled. If you know
Yep.
someone's trying to control you or manipulate you, you want to do
Mhm.
the exact opposite of what they're doing. And that's a very normal reaction. We hate being controlled. And so
Right.
when you're the higher desire spouse and you want more sex out of your spouse, you
Hmm.
tend to start doing controlling things to hopefully get it, right? And
Yeah.
then there's overt ways of doing it and there's covert or like aggressive and passive ways of doing it. Like I work with a lot of really quote unquote nice guys where they do very passive things like they'll unload the dishwasher, help kids with homework, put them to bed, draw the bath for her. But beneath all of those things, there's this underlying unspoken message that as I do these things, it'll put you in the mood so you'll have sex with me. So even though those are kind things on the outside,
Yeah.
the
A little
message that's
manipulative.
actually going on is this is a manipulation to get me in bed with you. So,
Hmm.
and then he's like, well, the marriage books say I need help with the chores and I need help. And none of these things work. Well, it's not working because it's the energy behind why you're doing it matters
Yes.
so much in a marriage relationship. And we forget that. We think it's all things
Yeah.
we do or say, but it's far more than it's about who you are in it.
Yeah. That's very interesting. You say that I can relate to that in my past with partners when they come and say, "Well, how about I'd love to give you a massage tonight." And then, and you're always falling for it. And then after a while, I'm like, okay, I know what this means. They start out very briefly with the massage and then the hands start
Right.
going. And next thing you know, you're having sex. And I think it's a lot of like what you said. It's that manipulation of doing things in hopes of
Right.
that's how it's going to end. Right. Yeah.
Yes. Uh-huh. And then you
Yeah.
get attuned to it as, in your situation, you can smell it a mile away. You know
Oh,
it's
yeah.
coming.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about human brains is we can map what's going on in someone else's mind more clearly than we can map what's going on in our own mind. That's just the way our
Wild.
brains are. And it's a survival technique, right? If you're going to
Mhm.
survive, you want to know what's going on and around you. So our brains
Mhm.
are highly tuned to what other people think about us. That's why we're
Mhm.
so susceptible, vulnerable to those negative comments on Instagram or what
Yeah.
other people think about us. Our brains are just highly tuned to like, what do others think about? We're constantly scanning the environment for that. Well, that's
Yeah.
also in a marriage. Why is my spouse doing this? Why is my spouse being nice to me, for example?
Mhm.
Like, or what's going on here? And then that all feeds into this system that your marriage operates in. So I help couples really dissect their systems and understand it's not words you say. It's not like leaving the chocolate on the pillow or filling the bathtub for them. That's not what it is. It's the energy behind why it's done. You have to really check yourself on all that. Is it because I
Interesting.
want sex out of you? Or is it because I want
Yeah.
to invest in you because I care about you? There's a big
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah. Absolutely. So how can they balance like the demands of everyday life? I mean, everybody's busy, especially in this day and age, right? So much work, parenting. And so how can they kind of keep that intimacy going in their lives when they are so busy? Is it about slotting out little times? What do
Yeah,
you think about
yeah. I think let's just get really practical. I have 6 kids. We have a very busy
that? Yeah, I'm
household.
asking the right person.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So let's be real and just be realistic with your spouse. Like there are times you just can't get everything you want done,
Yes.
and you
Yep.
have to choose. What are you going to
Yeah.
pick? So
Yeah.
that's just reality. We have
Yeah.
choices to make. And some choices are the thing about sex in a marriage is it's easy to put on the back burner because
Yeah.
it's a little thing. Little things are easy to always put off. Like urgent things always get our attention, urgent
Hmm.
front center, high priority things. But it's the less urgent yet important things that often get backburnered. So
Hmm.
it's a couple that can really decide together, no, even though this isn't urgent that we have sex, like doesn't feel so pressing or urgent right now, we're going to prioritize this because we know it's important. And the kind of sex we're going to have is going to be very nourishing. It's going to be replenishing. We're going to feel better off afterwards. So I might
Hmm.
lose an hour of sleep doing it, but I get so much more out of it than the hour of
Yeah.
sleep I would have gotten. Like if you're having that kind of sex, then it's
Yeah.
easier to prioritize, right?
Yeah.
Contrast that with we're doing it out of duty or obligation. So, he's not grumpy or whatever.
Hmm.
Then you're not going to feel better off afterwards for engaging. So why you're having sex matters, but just being practical and then making it
Yeah.
a priority. If you study the lives of those with magnificent sex lives, they put a lot of effort into their sexual relationship. It's a priority. Good sex squanders time. That's
Yeah.
just the way it is. You can't be efficient with sex and expect it to be great. So
Yeah.
you got to like block out chunks of time and just got to make it worth it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it too is finding that balance of I'm assuming quite often people are very different in when they want to have it or when it's comfortable for them. I'm a night person, my partner might be a morning person, so that can make it a little bit tricky. So I guess it's also finding that balance there as well. Yeah, so what do you think about vulnerability and how that plays in restoring emotional and physical intimacy? I'm assuming a huge part of intimacy is vulnerability.
Yeah. If you look at the word intimacy, one way to look at is it's into me see.
Mm.
You're looking
Okay.
into me. I'm letting you get a peek into the private part of my heart, like the inner side. And it cuts both ways. It's a willingness to look into the other person. It's I want to
Yeah.
be known and I want to know.
Mhm.
It's that level. And so when we talk about vulnerability, as in like Brene Brown vulnerability, it's about opening up our heart to really let another person in and
Mm.
also being willing to invest and to know another person. And that takes a lot of courage. It's not for the faint of heart.
Yeah.
There's a practice I give a lot of my couples that I call the daily check-in.
Okay.
And most couples, they'll check in. How was your day? Well, I did this at this time. I did this at that time. Then I had this errand to run and then this happened and I couldn't do that. So it's more like a recounting of your day, which there's nothing wrong with that. But if you can speak, have you seen the movie Inside Out with what goes on in
Yeah.
Joy's head? This is a Pixar movie.
Yes. Yes.
Think of the
Yes.
main characters of anger, fear, sadness, right?
Yeah.
Disgust, joy, right?
Yeah.
Instead, as you relate to your spouse, like use that as a guide. Instead,
Hmm.
talk about here's a time today I felt fear. Here's a time today I felt anger. Here's a time today I felt disgust. Here's a time today I felt joy, and so on and
Hmm.
so on. It allows you to learn how to speak more emotionally instead of just recounting facts. And for most women, generally speaking, this is intuitive to them. So a lot of men, this is not intuitive to them, learning how to speak emotionally. But it's a
Yeah.
great skill for all people to learn because emotions are what connect us to each other. So if you want to be really deeply connected with someone, tell them about your day from an emotional standpoint, even if it
Yeah.
involves something that is potentially a little risky, like I felt anger today because of something you did, right? That could be a little difficult to say, but what you're doing is you're pulling back the curtain and letting them peek into what my
Yeah.
experience was like today. And then
Yeah.
you offer them the exact same courtesy. This is how people can practice vulnerability and build a stronger emotional connection. So my wife and I make it a habit of every night we go to bed, we call it our check-in. It takes 5 minutes-ish per
Yeah.
person, some days longer. We talk on it at an emotional level about what's going on inside of us.
Okay. I like that. So then beyond emotional intimacy and vulnerability, where do we go from there? What about, how do couples overcome feelings of insecurity? I mean, the vulnerability of just like taking your clothes off is,
Yes.
might have some body image issues. How does that
Uh-huh.
affect your physical connection?
Sure. It's very common to have body image issues. Most people have body image issues. We look in the
Yeah.
mirror and gravity has its effect on us. You can't argue with that, right? We age, things happen, but we forget that really good sex is far more about what our bodies do. You make
Mhm.
love with your heart, not just your body.
Oh, that's great.
So great love making involves so much more than what your body looks like or what it can do functionally, because
Mhm.
there are people with disabilities who have
Mhm.
great sex lives. Part of their body may not function well. For example, they might be paralyzed or be on oxygen because they can't
Mhm.
breathe well, or I don't know. Yet they've learned how to have a great intimate sexual relationship. And it may not look like orgasms, like
Yeah.
fireworks, like according to other people's standards. But as
Yeah.
far as depth of connection and depth of fulfillment, it's
Mhm.
off the charts because they know how to be real with their
Mhm.
spouse. In fact, for some people, they say it's not until you've been together 20, 30, 40 years until when sex takes on a whole nother level of dimension, because you can't rely on your body all the time anymore
Yeah.
to
That's true.
produce
Yeah.
things, and it requires more self for it to be great. So it's calling for more of heart in the lovemaking. And that's when
Yeah.
things start to really turn and to become really magnificent. So if you put that kind of in the backdrop, that might help. Another thing that can do with just body image issues is, and this is for some women who choose to do this, and
Mhm.
it's got to be 100% your choice. You don't do it because your husband asked you to do it. You do it because you want to. Is to go get a boudoir photo shoot.
Oh, yeah. I've done that. That's fun.
Have you done that? Great.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And yeah, there's some, I don't know if you've ever shared your experience with that, but for most women I talk to, there's something special and empowering when they see their own photographs afterwards, like, holy cow, I'm hot. I
I,
look that good. And a lot of
that's it.
husbands are like, I've been telling you all along. Come on. Like they can tell her she's blue in the face how good she is. I don't care about
Yeah.
if you've gained an extra 10 pounds or whatever, right? That's like, you are gorgeous. And then she
Yeah.
gets the photo shoot back and she's like, he's right. I'm pretty good looking. So that can also help with body image issues. But part of it is learning how to love yourself. A lot of times we're so critical. Um, like we say things about ourselves to ourselves that we'd never say to a friend or even a
Yeah.
worst enemy for that
Yeah.
matter. We would never
Yeah.
say to someone in their
We're
face, like,
so
you're
hard on
ugly.
ourselves. Mhm.
Yes, yet we say it to ourselves all the time. So learning how to have more self-compassion, like
Yeah.
don't speak to yourself, treat yourself as your own best friend. Like I
Mhm.
would never say something to myself and treat myself in a way that I wouldn't treat a best friend. So
Yeah.
as you learn how to practice that more and you learn how to like love yourself a little bit better,
Mhm.
be kind to yourself, you'll naturally feel more confident in the bedroom because you know it's like it's not about me. It's not about
Yeah.
this. You're not focused on the negative. This is about love.
Hmm. I love that. And yeah, I did the boudoir photo shoot and it kind of had that same feeling, because you're so much harder on yourself, like you said. You see yourself differently than your partner, spouse might see you. And I remember doing it. I talked about this in one of my earlier episodes. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I did it. And then the pictures came in and I was like, well, hot damn, look at my ass.
Exactly, right? Yeah.
What are you waiting? Because you're like, I never saw me like that or never, thought about that. And if it's for nobody else other than you, even if you never show anybody else, it's such a cool feeling to see yourself in that light and be like, yeah, I look good. And it does change the way you think about yourself. So that's a
Right.
great suggestion. So, talking about, you mentioned the big O. What do you think people are most fearful about with orgasms? Why are they so afraid to just let themselves go? Tend to, and I've done it many, many times, fake it ahead of time before we even get to that point. Why do you think, what is the big fear of actually having an orgasm or being that vulnerable in that
Yeah,
situation?
well, whew, all right, there's a lot here. Many women fake orgasms,
Mhm.
partially because they want their man to feel good about themselves.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm speaking as a man.
Yeah.
There's nothing that like fills my ego more than like thinking I gave my
Knowing
wife
she
an
was
orgasm.
satisfied.
Yeah, right, exactly. It is so good. But I also got to tell you, as a man, one of my biggest fears in sex is that my wife isn't into it.
Mm.
This is going on in the back of every man's mind. Like, is she into it? Is she into me? Is she enjoying this? Because men don't want to be seen as a predator. They don't want to be seen as a taker in
Yeah.
sex. So
Yeah.
their biggest fear in sex, this is where men hide, is they don't want to be seen as that predator. So if
Yeah.
she's into it, then he can relax a little bit and enjoy it.
Hmm.
A lot of porn is around women who are very into it. They
Yeah.
never say no. They say yes, yes, yes. They never have a headache, right? Right? It's a complete fantasy and it's not real life. But that's the idea. That's why it's so fake, is because that's not reality. So let's say it's a new couple, new sexual relationship, and he may not show it because he's really good at masking it. But there is this underlying fear of, is she going to be into it?
Mhm.
So she can pick up on that. You remember how he said we can map other people's brains better than our
Yeah.
own, right? So to put his fears at ease, an easy way to do is fake an orgasm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that, oh, it's like, oh, good. Now he can relax a little bit, right? But the problem is how, like, I coached a couple where they've been married for years
Hmm.
and he found out that she's never actually had an orgasm. All the times they thought they had an orgasm, she's just been faking it all along. And how devastating he feels. Devastated he feels, right? So part of it is, I think if you want a really good relationship with a partner, you need to learn how to be honest.
Hmm.
And honesty isn't for the faint of heart either.
Yeah.
So going on faking is kind of setting up a deception because you care more about managing another person's feelings than being really vulnerable and honest yourself. So
Hmm.
that's one aspect that we need to look into. Like, I think the more mature you become, the less
Hmm.
willing you're going to be to fake an orgasm, because you know that if you really want a mature relationship with this person, it's got to be based on something a little more real, something a little more honest, and not just based on propping up each other's egos and feelings to make them feel good.
Regarding that couple you mentioned, where do you even, what do you suggest they do?
I've coached many women on how to have an orgasm,
Mm.
and there's the pathways different women to women, but the general principles are the same. And it's about, from a physiological standpoint, we all have an arousal threshold and a orgasm threshold. Think about it on a graph.
Yeah.
And as arousal builds, you'll hit a arousal threshold. At this point, the touch starts to feel good. Your body starts to respond. You'll lubricate. Your genitals are engorged with blood. Things start to feel a little better, and you start
Hmm.
getting more in the mood. Like desire starts showing up. Okay, I want a little more of that. Yeah, give me a little more. The more to the left. Yeah, right there. Stop. Steer right there. What are you doing? Slowing down. 7. All right, you get to 7, 7, 7. Seven, seven, seven. That's the orgasm threshold, right?
Oh, okay. We're not there yet.
That's the
Two.
next line, right? Exactly. That's the next thing to cross.
It's the best friends
So
split.
yeah, I love that clip. It's hilarious. So part of it is learning on your own body what feels pleasurable and what feels good. And
Hmm.
so for some women, they've never really taken the time to really explore their own body and understand their own body and how it functions well enough. Contrasting it to men, there's studies done on the orgasm gap where they say in a heterosexual relationship, generally speaking, men have an orgasm 95% of the time, maybe 99% of the time
Oh,
they have
yeah.
sexual intercourse, right? It's very, very high compared to 60% of women, which this is all self-reported statistics. So there's not like they
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
like measurements attached to people or cameras in bedrooms, thank goodness. There's this, so it's,
Yeah.
there's going to be a
What
lot of
people are
variation
saying.
and all that. But still, if we take those off of face value, there's a 35 to 40% gap. That's a huge gap between the two
Yeah.
genders. And we want it to be at parity, 1 to 1. We want lots of orgasms. In fact, women are capable of having multiple orgasms more easily than men are
It's the
capable of
one
having
thing we
multiple
got, Dan.
orgasms.
The one thing we got.
You got a lot more than that. For another, just looking at anatomy differences, the glands of the clitoris, that's the tip of the clitoris that's visible from the labia. That part has 8,000 or more nerve endings as far as concentration of pleasure capacity. And you
Wow.
contrast that with the homologue for the male, it's the tip of his penis, has 4,000. So half
Wow.
the sensation capacity. So women are capable of far more sensitivity and far more pleasure in the sexual stimulation than men are.
Interesting.
Biologically, women take more time to get aroused.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is for a few good reasons. I have my theories on it. One is, for example, for men, like this is Masters and Johnson in the 60s and 70s. They studied human sexuality. They're one of the pioneers in the human sexuality science.
Okay.
And they'd bring people into their lab and then have them masturbate and then like hook them up to sensors and just study how the body responds in sex. In general, start to finish for men, 6 minutes from start to orgasm. For
Okay.
women, it was like 25 minutes, plus or minus,
Huge
because,
difference.
yeah, huge difference. So when you engage sexually and you're done after 10 minutes, like just looking at those numbers, she's still 15 minutes away from reaching her peak arousal. So, of course, you're going to have an orgasm gap. So, one of the things couples need to understand going into sex is you're going to have to spend a lot more time than you think you usually do to really help her build her arousal. Now, of the two genders, generally speaking, men are bigger than women.
Mm-hmm.
Women are more vulnerable to sexual disease, like sexually transmitted infections, like 40% more likely to contract them compared to men, just because
Ooh.
of anatomy.
Okay.
Also, 6-minute involvement for a man can turn into 9 months of pregnancy for her, and then 18 years of child rearing, right? So can you see, of the two genders, who has more at stake when they have sex? It's the woman, right? She's way more vulnerable in the sexual situation. So I think Mother Nature has gifted women with a slower arousal time so that she can map, is this a person that will stick around after we're done? Is this a
Yeah.
person that will help rear the children? Is this a person I can really trust into my body?
Right.
Because unless a woman has really decided that she's safe with this person, her body will not respond in a sexually pleasurable way.
Mm.
So there's got to be a huge amount of trust built in to the relationship to that point. And so as couples really focus on slowing things down, helping build arousal, but also outside of the bedroom too, just in everyday moment to moment living, demonstrate integrity, demonstrate honesty, demonstrate trustworthiness. Then
Mm.
in that vulnerable sexual situation, this is good judgment for her to let this man into her body, into her soul, into her mind. This is a
Right.
good judgment that I can partner with this person, because then you can have orgasms and have
Yeah.
lots of orgasms, and it's all
Yeah.
for goodness. And
Yeah.
I think we forget about that because we're so focused
Yeah.
on what's the technique? Is it clockwise to the right or was it clockwise to the left? Like that's not the point as so much as who are you and who are you going to be in this to create an optimal sexual experience.
Yeah. Wow, I love so much of what you said there, and I hope people really resonate with that and think about that, because when we do often do, we fake the orgasms, all we're doing really is setting up everybody up for failure. I mean, because we're
Oh
now
yeah.
letting the man think that he has satisfied us, and so now every time going forward, I'm sure they're like, I know exactly what to do. So now we're just hurting ourselves because we're not really getting what we need from the relationship, and they're the only one that are happy, right? And then you put yourself in this spot where now it's an uncomfortable situation, conversation to have, just like you said with your couple. How devastating for a man to now to find out, after all of these years of thinking he satisfied you, to now find out that he hasn't. That has got to be more traumatizing than in the first place, just saying, hey, that's not working for me. I need you to go a little bit more in this direction, or I need you to do a little bit more of that. Right? It's got
Right.
to be
Right.
huge. So how do this is my favorite topic, sex toys and vibrators. How did they And I know we have so much to discuss on this. So, how do sex toys and vibrators enhance intimacy in marriage? And are there ways that it could potentially harm? And then I have follow up questions, but I want to hear about that first.
All right, sounds good. So first of all, if your belief is that sex toys are kind of bad or
Mm-hmm.
unsavory,
Mm-hmm.
then all of my talk about what I'm about to say probably isn't going to help you. So
Solution to
you got to
it.
check in with your beliefs. But if you're kind of like neutral or ambivalent, I don't know, I haven't made up my mind, or I kind of like the idea of it, then what I'm about to say could be very helpful for you.
Yeah, yeah. If you're curious, sure.
And the reason why is because our beliefs have so much of an influence over our sexual attitudes and our performance. So, and
Mm.
our
Okay.
experience in sex. So it's really important that you understand and check in with your own personal values first.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Where I live, it's a big booming town, lots of house construction, road construction, everything's under construction, it feels like. So I drive by homes that are under construction. They're getting framed
Yeah.
and construction, like, the carpenter's there. He's building a house. He's framing the house. He has a nail gun that's hooked up to an air compressor. Bam, 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 bam. He can hit, 6 nails in it really fast, right? And then there's the saw, right? He's got the power saw hooked up so he can cut the wood just the right dimensions. This is how you build homes. Now, he could be out there with a hammer and a nail,
Mm-hmm.
or with a manual saw, back and forth, like with his hand,
See where
like
you're going with
getting
this?
really
Yeah.
sore after making one cut, and he's got 30 more cuts to go, right? Like, you
Yeah.
can build a house that way too if you want, but we use power tools because they help us get to our goals faster, more efficiently, and sometimes
Oh,
higher quality, right? You get a higher quality build because you have tools to help you get there. I view
yes.
sex toys in the exact same light, potentially, because there's something about our bodies and certain types of touch in certain parts of ways resonate really well. For
Mm-hmm.
example, the woman's clitoris responds very well to certain types of vibration. It's the way it gets stimulated. Just kind of like, I don't know, like a deep rub on your shoulder feels so
Uh-huh.
much better than a light tickle, right?
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
tickle there doesn't do anything, but a deep rub
Yeah.
does. Certain parts of our body respond to certain types of touch differently, is my point. And the
Okay.
clitoris responds to vibration. So, a lot of sex toys that focus on clitoral stimulation, women tend to respond very well to that because the body is highly tuned to receive that kind of touch. That's very
Mm.
difficult to replicate by hand or with another human. So
Yeah.
it's a fantastic tool to help aid in pleasure.
Interesting. And I think a lot of people, like you said, are fearful of it. Their beliefs of it is I'm maybe to some extent like, oh, I'm cheating on my spouse by using certain products or toys, And I can't agree with you more. Like you said, it's a different feeling. I always try to say that it's different. It's a different experience. I very much enjoy it more than the actual act of the intercourse, but it's only because it is a different feeling. And like you said, you can get to it that much quicker and back on with my day. So, what would you say are like the issues or the problems that come along with it? Now, I've heard overstimulation, if you can be desensitized because you're using these products so much, can it cause issues within your relationship in that way? Do you think that?
Yeah, I've got 2 or 3 thoughts on this. First is I look at it like money. Someone would ask me, Dan, is money good or bad?
Good.
I would answer, it depends on how you spend it, right?
Yeah, that's right. Right.
Money could be used in bad, evil ways and can also be used in good, productive, constructive ways. I think a sex toy is neutral. And then
Mm,
it just all depends on why you're using it. Can you use it to
okay.
cheat on your spouse? Absolutely, sure. Can you use it to build a deeper connection with your partner?
Yeah.
Absolutely, yes. It just
Yeah.
depends on how you're going to use it. Kind of like money, it's neutral.
Yeah.
Now, about the desensitization thing, I think that's a myth in that, well, just because I walk all day on my feet, it doesn't mean I lose sensation on my feet, right? My body
Right.
doesn't lose, because I use my eyes all day long, it doesn't mean I go blind towards the end of the day. Like, it doesn't make sense. Our senses are senses. Now, there is a thing about maybe if I go to a rock concert that's really, really loud, and
Yes.
when it's over and I'm walking out, my ears feel kind of muffled still,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Our
Yeah.
bodies do that to kind of self-protect. Like, it's there to
Okay.
protect from harm from overstimulation, so it starts to numb things out
Mhm.
temporarily. But if I was in a loud environment for a long period of time, it could cause deafness. It could cause damage, right?
Yeah. So
So,
limit your use.
well, just don't use toys that if you feel yourself starting to get overstimulated and numb, remember that's like walking out of the rock concert. That's your body's way of trying to protect itself from
Okay.
overstimulation. So continued use, like it's going to start to hurt. So just stop using it
Mhm.
then. But I think the bigger fear is dependence on it. If I start
Yeah.
using a sex toy, that means I have to use a sex toy in order to reach orgasm. And
Yeah.
to me, I think it's not quite black and white in that way. Our brains are very plastic. We have neural pathways that are formed by repeated action. Learning a
Mm.
language, for example, I'm learning Spanish. I need to practice speaking Spanish more and more often. Then that part
Mhm.
of my brain starts to habitualize the Spanish more. I can speak Spanish a little bit better the more I practice it, right? What
Yes.
fires together wires together, as they say in your brain.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So learning how to orgasm is no different. There's a certain method that you've probably learned how to orgasm, and you
Mhm.
practice it over and over, it becomes easier and easier for you. A vibrator is a way using a vibrator to reach orgasm. It becomes an easier way. Now, if you want to learn how to orgasm, I don't know, from oral stimulation, which is a very
Mhm.
different type of stimulation than maybe a vibrator, well, that's okay too. You just got to remember that you got to build those new neural pathways. It doesn't take away from what you have learned. It's just
Yeah.
it's all adaptive. It's just learning. It's just brain learning.
Right. Interesting. Often, too, people need to realize there's so many toys out there that can be used as a couple, and you can engage in these activities, right? Together. I mean,
Mhm.
I think it's very intimate and very pleasing to have your partner engage in it with you while you're using your toy. Explain what you like them to do while you're doing that. And that can make for a wonderful time together, too, right? They don't have to just be
Absolutely.
doing it by themselves. Yeah, yeah. They can do that all the time. So what about porn? How does porn, that's my follow-up question. What role does porn play in relationships? Do you think it can strengthen or does it kind of hinder a relationship?
Well, I'll tell you what the science says, and then I'll follow up with my personal opinion.
Okay.
Because this has been a topic that sex scientists have studied for quite, like sexologists have studied quite extensively. Does porn
Okay.
harm or benefit?
Yes.
And there's some controversy that, oh, all these studies are, paid for by the porn industry and whatever. And
Yeah.
they're not. They're not paid for.
Yeah. If
If
you're not
you've
getting
ever
paid
worked
to
for
say
a
this
PhD
right now.
candidate, like, no,
Yeah.
they're not getting funded. This isn't how above board research goes, right?
Okay.
So they bring couples into the lab, and which is like, the office at the university, usually recruiting fellow university students
Hmm.
because they're willing test subjects, and they have them fill out a questionnaire, and they have a control group and then a test group. And
Yeah.
in the test group, they're going to have willing participants. They know what they're getting into. Say, we're
Hmm.
going to have you watch a series of pornographic videos over some time. And after a few weeks, we want you to come back in, and then we're going to take another assessment. And so they measure like the quality of the relationship across a few scores, like how happy are you in the relationship? How satisfied are you? Those kinds of measures, how well do you communicate? And then they measure, okay, the control group versus the test group. And the test group watched so much porn versus the control group. And then they assess. So did the relationship get stronger or less? So as scientists do like hundreds of these kinds of studies, the results are completely mixed. You get some studies that say, yes, porn actually really helped couples come together. They're more satisfied. You have others that like, it had no bearing on the relationship total, or others saying actually they felt more distant as a result. So what that tells me is there's going to be a lot of variation in couples' experiences. So there's no true like one size fits all like thing. But one thing we do know is those that already have an attitude that there's no big deal with porn, and sure, I'll watch it with my partner. That sounds fun. Why wouldn't I want to? Of course we'd want to. Like if they have that kind of attitude going into it, then it kind of, because they watch the erotic films, they start feeling a little more aroused, and next thing they know, they want to, jump the bones of their spouse. That feels good to them, and they're both kind of involved. Well, that's going to be a very different experience compared to the people that they're really unsure about. They're really uncomfortable about what's on the screen. They're really uncomfortable, like what's going on in my partner's mind as he's watching this. Like, or there's a lot of comparison, like, exactly. And then you jump into it. Your body might feel some arousal because there's something just arousing about seeing that. Like, you're physiologically aroused, yet in your mind, you're not aroused. And there's going to be a difference. It's not always concordant that way. So then you're in a sexual scenario. And over time, you're like, I don't know if this is really good for our relationship. Does he really want me, or is he doing it because of the porn? Like, so you're going to have a very mixed experience. So if you're in the very first camp, then I think the science says it'll help you. Now, for my personal opinion, if you're okay with that. I don't believe pornography is good for most relationships. I don't choose it. I don't think it's helpful because it's produced. It's like Cheetos, the snack Cheetos from Frito-Lay. They got a bunch of scientists together in a room and said, okay, what parts of the brain light up when they eat certain things? And it's sugar and fat and crunch. What can we do to optimize high sugar, high fat, right amount of crunch, produce a snack that's super cheap that we can sell for high margins, and it has low nutritional value as a result, right? If your diet is on Cheetos, which, by the way, your brain's like, I like that. Oh, I want more of that, because it's lighting up the pleasure centers in your brain, right?
Yeah.
Just because it's our survival mechanism. If you're starving, then you'd go for high fat, high sugar foods because that's what our brains need. So we're very adapted to certain kinds of things, but it's ultra concentrated. So now you're eating Cheetos as your diet. That's not going to help you nutritionally. So in a way, porn is like the Cheetos of sex, where it's highly, like, these people on screen, they don't share bills together. They're not raising kids together. They don't have everyday regular challenges together. They're not invested in each other, right? This is Cheetos. It's a diet. So part of it is, so that's a part of it, just understanding that when people choose to, you can get a sexual gratification out of watching porn. It can be very gratifying, but it's a low cost for high sexual arousal. Where in a real relationship, that's not real life. It's actually easier to get off on porn than it is with your spouse, because with your spouse, first of all, you have to be connected emotionally. You have to make sure you've talked about your day. Like, so many barriers. I'd rather go watch porn and masturbate. That's the easy way out, at least to get my fix. But there's going to be an emptiness and hollowness in it, because the porn's never going to love you back. It's not going to ask you about your day. It's not going to invest in you and care about you. So there's something about building a real relationship that's like the Brussels sprouts or the green beans or the salads or the real nutrition. So you got to make sure your diet's on that. And then the other opinion I have is the industry itself is very suspect. Most of the actors in it, they say they're liberated. And I just listened to a few former porn stars just share their story getting out of the industry. Most of them are on drugs. Even the high paid ones, they make a lot of money, but they spend even more on illegal drugs just to get through scenes. They feel very numb to themselves. It's a very cutthroat industry. And the demands of, like, pushing the boundaries keep getting higher and higher and higher. So there's less freedom in it, and people in it feel stuck. This is how they make money. This is what they know. But getting out of it, they feel trapped in it. And so I don't want to support an industry that's dark, that's full of a lot of things. But that's my opinion. You're welcome to have your opinion. And it's okay if it's different than mine. But I think I wouldn't recommend a couple sit down and watch porn together if that's how they want to build a better relationship long term.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting what you said. And I guess it is to each his own. And if they have those conversations together and decide, hey, once in a while, let's make this part of like a special night or something, we do fun, I think that's fine. But I agree with you on, like, as an everyday thing or part of your sexual lifestyle, I think that's very hard to sustain that, or and you do go through those moments of I'm sure jealousy, you know, like so many different things probably go through your mind that's creating more of a wedge between you than it is bringing you together. So I welcome your opinion. I think it's good. I think it'd be fun sometimes, but I'm not a big porn fan. So I get that.
Well, go make your own with your partner and watch
That's
that. I
right.
think that'd be a lot harder.
In your face.
Don't share it with the world. It's just for you two. But that can be very
Exactly.
erotic, and it'd probably give you the kind of the punch you're after anyway.
Yeah,
But
it's a great
or go do a
substitute.
role play together. Do a role play date. Or do something like go out in the woods or out in the canyon or at a lake at night and just be a little naughty. Of course, check your laws, make sure you're not doing anything illegal. That I think
Yeah.
will pack a bigger punch for erotic fuel for your relationship
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
something cheap. That's my opinion.
That's great. Do you train much on role play stuff? I don't ever hear much about it. I tend to ask it a lot in my would you rather question if people would rather
Huh?
have blindfolded surprises or playful role play. And it's, it's usually 50-50, but a lot of people are like, I don't know the role play. I've never done role play. I think it's intimidating. I don't know
Andrea,
why.
you are missing out.
We miss it out.
You're missing out. It could be so fun.
But like, what's the top people that you would role play? I mean, is it always like I'm being robbed and they come in the door and I'm like, yeah, that's how I think of it, or a nurse and a patient, kind of thing. Is that
Yeah.
what you think?
So every person's going to have their preferences, but okay. All right. We can't talk about role play without talking about the yin and the yang first. So
Okay.
let's go
Yeah.
there real quick.
Yeah.
In any good sexual encounter, you're going to have
Mhm.
polarity. Polarity is like positive pole, negative pole. The stronger the strength of different poles,
Yeah.
the greater the attraction, right? A strong magnet's
Yeah.
very attracted to the opposite pole.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So role plays are all they are is just exaggerating the masculine or the feminine or the yin and the yang pole. Just think about it that way.
Okay. I like it. In my mind, like I said, I've never done it. So in my mind, it's like the very specific, like the knock at the door and yes, doctor, come in. To me, that seems so cheesy and like, oh my God, are we really doing this? But the way you said it is you're taking things that you do in your everyday life thing and you're spicing it up. You're just
Oh
making
yeah.
it a little
Uh-huh.
bit different. And so I think that kind of role play is you've changed my mind on this, on the way I'm thinking about it. And like, oh, okay, I see how you're doing that. You take things that you might enjoy doing and changing it up a little bit and making it like a role play. So I think that's exciting more so
Yeah.
than
So
the
Andrea,
doctor, the
for
nurse,
you, if I can put you on the spot just a little bit,
Okay.
in
Yeah.
your sexual relationship,
Hmm.
your best top peak sexual experiences, are you more of the person calling the shots, like more
Hmm.
the dominant role, or do you enjoy being more the submissive role? Like, how
Yeah,
about you?
more dominant.
Great. So in
I
your
did, yeah, I
play,
find that I
you would be
take
better
control.
off as the doctor, not the
Yeah,
patient,
yeah, I would.
because
Yeah,
because that's the way you tend to gravitate towards in your relationships. So
yeah.
your role play would be better off if you're the female doctor. He was expecting a male
Mhm.
doctor, not a female doctor, right? You
I
come in,
come in
you
all
have your
sexied up.
clipboard, and you're going to tell him exactly what he needs to do next. And because you're the doctor, you're
Yeah,
in charge, and he's the patient, he has to listen to. I don't care if he makes $1 billion a year. You're the doctor, and he's the patient, so
like
he's got to
almost
listen
good.
to you. Do you see how
Ooh, I
that's
like.
now we're talking about polarity here. That
Yeah,
is
so
a
you
role
got to
play that
know
you
who
both
you
can
are.
engage in.
Yeah, so you got to know really what turns you on, who you are and what will work for you, because that may not have worked as being, as doing it the way you did it. It just depends on who you are and how you partake in that kind of activity, right?
Right.
Interesting.
We did another role play once where our kids were like at grandma's house or something. We had an empty house, which
Yeah,
was really rare for us. So we're going to have
with
just be
six
at home.
kids. Yeah.
And so we got this date idea. It's not our own. We got this particular one online, a fantastic website called Faithful Fling. They come up with role play sexy dates for couples.
Ooh, I like this. Okay.
And so anyway, she's a realtor coming to my
Huh?
house. I'm selling my house. And she's a very
Okay.
assertive top listing agent in the area coming to
Uh-huh.
convince me that I need to hire her as my listing agent to sell my house.
Okay. Okay.
And do you see how that's also about role play dynamics, right?
Yes.
She's going to be more assertive in this role play. She's going to be more like, this is what we're going to do. And she
Yeah.
tested every single bed, tested every single couch, tested even the washer, made sure she saw the,
Wow.
like, take me to the garage. You got a lot of tools here. That's good. Like, she's dropping hints left and right through
Yeah.
everything. And it was
Yeah.
smoking hot. Do you see
That's
how like
awesome.
role plays they can be more scripted, like the realtor visiting. They could be more impromptu, like a haircut, or
Hmm.
they can just be in bed, just looking at each other and goes like, "You want this, don't you?" And
Yes.
just
And
the
being
the
submissive,
tease.
dominant,
That is a
protect.
role play, right? That's the
Yeah.
play. You're playing in a particular
Interesting.
role. We're going to exaggerate the yin or the yang, or the
Yeah.
feminine, masculine.
So, okay, so to kind of reignite relationships that have been maybe dwindling over time for a little bit, like what would be some practical tips for reigniting the sexual connection that you could get?
It always starts with the small things, I think. Do you like each other?
Hmm.
Do you want to invest in each other? Do you care about each other?
Yeah.
Do you want to go out and just have fun? I think we kind of
Oh,
get
building
so
it.
lost in the mundane and the pressure and the stress. We forgot how to have fun together. At the beginning of a
Yeah.
relationship, you knew how to have fun. You'd have fun all the time. You
Yeah.
forget that. So
Oh,
make
go back to that.
the date night is a time not where you go grocery shopping together. Date night is not a time to balance the checkbook. Date night is when you're
Right.
supposed to have fun. Do all your
Yeah.
other stuff that you need to get done other times, but this is a safe
Yeah.
container. Even if it's just for an hour, we're going to have fun doing something we
Yeah.
both enjoy. So you don't
Yeah.
have to spend a lot of money, but just
Yeah.
do something fun. And I think
And
that's the
expect faith.
foundation for these things. It's
Yeah.
that friendship, and build that friendship, be good friends for each other, love each other, care for each other, start to
Yeah.
cherish each other. And I think the rest starts to follow suit.
Oh my gosh, this is so much good stuff. So before we're done here, what are one or two small, consistent habits that couples can contribute to keeping their intimacy alive? I know you talked about just communication, having the little date nights, things that don't make them feel overwhelmed in the beginning. Just a little takeaway for the listeners, even if
Oh,
it's
yeah.
repeating what you said before.
I think gratitude goes a long way,
Mm,
and expressing it is one thing, but you can always say something. Hey, thanks for dinner, thanks for unloading the dishwasher, whatever you want to say. But it's a different
yeah.
thing to like feel it in your body first and then
Yeah.
express it. There's a
Yeah.
difference. So it's more of a mindfulness tip than anything, but
Hmm.
just being more mindful of gratitude you can have. Let me share with this story, and it's a tragic story. My wife's cousin lives in Florida. She's
Hmm.
29 years old, has 3 kids, 8, 4,
Hmm.
and 1, and she goes running with a bunch of friends every Monday morning. They go to a
Okay.
park with jogging trails, so she puts the little kids in the jogging stroller, and they chat and have fun and go jog for a while and then comes home. So this Monday in May, she finishes the run, puts the kids in their car seats, puts the stroller in the back of the car, and she's driving home. She comes to an intersection, and a drunk driver runs through the red light in the opposite direction and T-bones her, and she dies instantly. 29 years old, 3 little kids.
Oh
It's
my God.
tragic. It's
They all
horrible.
died.
The
Wow.
children lived. The children are
Wow.
fine. Mom was killed instantly. So what, in my mind's eye, I want to picture, like, let's rewind back to Sunday night. Let's pretend it's
Yeah.
Sunday night, kids are in bed, husband and wife, they're at the sink brushing their teeth together. I wonder what their conversation was like that night.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have no idea. But what if they knew that was going to be their last night together? Would the quality of the conversation have been anything different? Totally would have, right? If you knew that today was going to be the last day with your spouse, with your loved one, would you treat them a little bit differently today? Probably.
So why wait for
I
that
don't mean to
moment?
be grim about this, but
Yeah.
there's something about death and endings that conjure up cherishing. That's when you realize nothing in life is guaranteed. You're not entitled to happiness. You're not entitled to all these things. And everything that you have is actually a gift. So treat your loved one as a gift. Hug your spouse or your partner. Bring them close. Cherish them, love them. Because you never know. Today might be the last day. Something could happen and you just never know. That, I think, having that attitude. Now, when you say thanks for unloading the dishwasher, that takes on a whole different level of meaning. It's not about just gratitude, like just to say it, to check it off the list. It's like, I'm grateful you're in my life and you want to do things to make my life better too. And that means something to me. I really appreciate that. I'm better off because of you. That's the attitude.
Perfect. I love that. What a great way to end that conversation. That could have been more perfect. Thank you for sharing that story. That's very sad. Very sad. So tell everybody where they can find you.
Thank you. My website is getyourmarriageon.com. I primarily work with married couples in midlife or about the empty nester stage, like in between there, that really want to get their marriage to the next level. And my Instagram is also Get Your Marriage On. And then you'll find my apps. My main app is called Intimately Us. So you'll search the App Store for Intimately Us. And my other app is called Just Between Us. Those two are my main apps.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing that. Before you go, I'd love to play a little game called From Mrs. to Ms. Would You Rather? I have.
All right, here we go. We do. That's kind of heavy, wasn't it? All right.
It's okay. I got us here. All right, you ready? Here we go. Number 1, would you rather work with a couple struggling with mismatched libidos or one dealing with unresolved resentment?
What's the difference? Because they're resentful about the mismatched libidos. Mismatched libidos. Yeah. It's all the same kind of work to me.
Number 2, would you rather help couples rediscover the thrill of slow seduction or dive into the excitement of spontaneous passion? Which way would you head? Or both again?
Ooh, wow. I'd say slow seduction. If I had to pick.
It's hot, right? Like that is
slow. Take it slow.
I mean, there's both. Like you can throw somebody up against a wall and you can have a great time right there. There's something about that, but slow too. It's pretty good. Right. Number 3, would you rather coach a couple on how to balance naughty and nice in public or how to bring out their boldest sides in private?
Boldest sides in private, I think would much rather coach that too.
PDA girl. PDA. I don't mind a kiss here and there, but beyond that, I'm like looking or I can't even. It's too much.
Yeah, it can be a distraction for sure. But I gotta say, there is something about human eroticism for some people, others not so much, but it's the forbidden is the draw.
Yes.
Like
it is.
It's the naughtiness of it makes it exciting. So like we might get caught and that's what gives it a thrill. Yep. It's so, but you can experiment with that, boldly in private too. So
yeah. Good point. All right. Number 4, would you rather fall for someone who makes you laugh uncontrollably or someone who gives you butterflies every time they walk in the room?
Butterflies every time they walk in the room.
Yeah, something cool about that. Number 5, would you rather laugh your way through a sexy board game or spice things up with role play? Here's my question.
Oh, wow. That's a tough one. I want both.
They're all fun. It's all fun.
We played some board games where we just laughed ourselves through. We just had so much fun. My goodness, that was so fun. It's not because that the sex was hot. It was a funny experience. We just laugh about it.
Yeah, you found out new stuff, right? You didn't know. All right, number 6, would you rather have the ability to read your partner's mind during sex or be able to control their sensations with just a touch?
Ooh, read their mind for sure. That'd be great.
I don't know if I want to know what they're thinking. I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. That is dangerous territory, but man.
It is dangerous.
Yeah. At least I'd be more empowered. I can read their mind. Okay, now I know where to go next or whatever.
Exactly. That's the good part. All right, number 7, trying new positions or mastering the old ones.
These are tough questions. I have to pick one or the other. Try new positions if I had to pick.
Yeah. trying new positions is fun, but it's hard because you also then you get yourself in a spot where there's an expectation to raise the bar and have something new every time, right? So you got to
Mm.
balance that, I think. Maybe
Yeah, there
throwing
is
it
that
and doing it.
balance. You're
Yeah,
right. Absolutely.
yeah,
I agree with you.
that'd be better. Number 8, would you rather experiment with a fun sex toy or try out a daring new location?
These are tough questions. I have to pick. I can't say both.
I mean,
How
just
about a
today.
daring new location with a new sex toy?
Ooh, I like that. Or
There
use the
you go.
sex toy in a daring new location.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, there you go.
on the body.
Yep.
Number 9, would you rather teach partners how to build tension all day long with subtle hints or how to instantly turn up the heat when the moment strikes?
I say build up tension slowly throughout the day
Yeah,
to turn up the
that's
heat.
great.
Yeah.
The thought of going home to that, like building it up all day and someone waiting for you at home, that's
Yeah,
good
that's
stuff.
really good.
That's good. Number 10, slow dancing in the living room or spontaneous dance moves in the kitchen?
Spontaneous dance moves. I don't know. Both. Both. I like
Depends on the
both.
moment.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like both. But
Are you and Emily like that? You break into dance every now and then?
well, yeah, with our kids especially, like turn
Yeah,
on the music and we'll all dance, during kitchen cleanup or whatever. But then
so fun.
then a romantic song I gotta say that over again. A romantic song comes on and I take my
Yes.
wife to the living room and we dance and our kids are like,
Whoa,
Mom, Dad, stop it. Ew, gross.
bro.
You know?
That's so
Yeah.
funny. It's still the same
And I,
way.
I twirl her around and I dip her and whatever. Like,
Yeah, give your kids.
yeah,
I
my
love
wife
that.
loves that kind of stuff. I love it too.
Yeah.
Our kids. So yeah, it's all
Oh,
good.
that's so
Both needed.
fun. Yes, most needed. So thank you for playing that game. That was fun. I love your answers. I get to find out something new about somebody. So, well, I've loved having you, Dan. This has been so great. So much great information and a lot for the listeners to take away. So I really appreciate you being here. That's been amazing. Amazing. You have a great one. Bye.
Great.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you want a more meaningful sexual and intimate connection in your marriage, I invite you to check out my Get Your Marriage On program. Over 100 couples have said this program packs tremendous value and has helped their intimacy grow to the next level. Now, go get your marriage on.